Let me ask you something, and answer this honestly. Do you feel like your job is less secure than it used to be? Not because you're underperforming, and not because you've checked out, but despite the fact that you're working hard, staying reliable, and doing what's expected. Maybe nothing has happened yet, no warning, no performance issues, but the feeling is there. You notice small things, like your role feels easier to question, decisions are happening without you, priorities shift and no one explains why. People talk about efficiency a lot more than growth. And even though you're still delivering, something feels off. And what makes this confusing is that on paper, you're doing everything right. You show up, you follow through, you help where needed, and you don't cause problems. In fact, you're often the person others rely on. So if things feel less stable, it doesn't make sense. And that's the part that creates anxiety. Because when you can't explain why something feels wrong, you start questioning yourself. Am I missing something? Is this just in my head? Or is something actually changing beneath the surface? And if you had that quiet, unsettling thought, you're not imagining it. Something has changed. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm Thomas Schmidt, and I've spent over 3 decades as a technology and business executive, including roles as COO, CMO, and head of product, leading teams through multiple industry and technology disruptions. Now, I work as a consultant, helping organizations how they manage technology, streamline operations, and sharpen both their marketing and product strategies. But I also help mid-career professionals reinvent their careers for what's coming next. And that's why I make these videos, to give you practical insights that help you stay relevant, competitive, and excited about your future. And as a quick ask, if you find this type of content useful, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps out the channel and informs YouTube to show this content to more people who need it. All right, let's get into it. What makes this situation especially frustrating is that the rules you're following used to work. For years, the formula was simple. Be dependable, do good work, support the team, and build a reputation as someone people can count on. And for a long time, that approach paid off. You earned trust, you earned responsibility, you earned a sense of stability. So when that same approach suddenly feels less effective, it's disorienting. You're not slacking, you're not disengaged, you're not doing less than before. If anything, you're doing more. More meetings, more follow-ups, more problem solving, more effort to keep things running smoothly. And yet the return on the effort feels smaller. You might still get thanked, you might still get positive feedback, but progress feels slower, security feels thinner, and momentum feels harder to sustain. And that creates a specific kind of confusion, because it's not obvious failure and it's not a clear mistake. It's the feeling that the ground shifted quietly while you are still playing by the old rules. So you start second guessing. Should I be pushing harder? Should I be speaking up more? Should I be worried? And because no one is giving you a straight answer, you're left trying to read signals instead of getting clarity. That uncertainty is exhausting. And it's exactly why so many capable professionals feel anxious right now, even when their performance hasn't dropped at all. False explanations. When something feels wrong at work, your brain naturally looks for explanations. The first one is performance. Maybe I'm not delivering enough. Maybe expectations have changed. Maybe the bar is higher now. So you push harder, you take on more, you tighten your execution. You try to be even more reliable. But deep down, that explanation doesn't fully fit because the work is getting done. The next assumption is visibility. Maybe leadership doesn't see what I'm doing. Maybe I need to speak up more. Maybe I need to advocate for myself. So you start sending more updates. You make your work clearer. You show progress. And yet the feeling doesn't go away. Then comes politics. Well, maybe it's favoritism. Maybe it's connections. Maybe decisions are being made behind closed doors. That explanation is tempting because it removes responsibility. But it doesn't explain why people just as capable as you in different organizations are feeling the same pressure. Finally, there's the big one, AI, automation, restructuring, technology replacing roles. And while those forces are real, they don't explain why some people feel increasingly exposed while others seem to become more secure. If it were tied just to performance, visibility, politics, or technology, the pattern would be clear. But it's not, which means the real issue isn't obvious. And that's what makes this moment so uncomfortable, because when the familiar explanations don't fully explain what's happening, you're left with a sense that something deeper has shifted, and you haven't been told what it is. The real mechanism. Here's what's actually happening, and it's not subtle. The behavior that used to protect you is no longer doing that. For years, being dependable, responsive, and willing to step in made you valuable. It kept teams moving and reduced friction, and it made you trustworthy. But in today's environment, those same behaviors are often interpreted differently. When you're consistently the person who absorbs work, fixes issues quietly, and keeps things from breaking, well, your role starts to look less like ownership and more like support. Not because you lack skill, but how your contribution shows up. From leadership's perspective, your value becomes tied to availability rather than leverage. So you're seen as someone who helps work get done, not someone who shapes what work matters. And that distinction didn't matter in stable organizations. It matters a lot now, because when companies redesign teams, cut costs, or evaluate roles for consolidation, they don't ask who worked hardest. They ask which roles create durable impact. And roles built around absorbing work are easier to redistribute, automate, or eliminate than roles built around ownership and outcomes. And this is why capable, respected professionals can suddenly feel exposed. It's not that their performance declined. It's that the way their value is positioned no longer protects them the way it once did. How this happens without you realizing. What makes this especially dangerous is that the shift rarely happens by choice. It happens gradually and quietly. You don't wake up one day deciding to become support. It happens when you step in to help a teammate who's overloaded, when you fix an issue so a project doesn't derail, when you say yes because it feels easier than pushing back. At first, those choices make sense. They keep things moving, they build goodwill, and they earn appreciation. But over time, a pattern forms. You become the fallback, the safety net, the person who makes problems go away. And because you're good at it, leadership sees fewer problems, not more. They don't see broken processes because you patch them. They don't see inefficiencies because you absorb them. They don't see risk because you quietly contained it. So instead of being recognized for preventing issues, you're associated with execution. Meanwhile, others, sometimes less busy, sometimes less reliable, are owning outcomes, setting direction, or defining what success looks like. They appear more strategic, not because they're smarter, but because their work is visible at a higher level. And this is how capable professionals end up everywhere, but nowhere that counts. They're valued, they're trusted, they're relied upon, but they're also easier to imagine without. And by the time that realization hits, the role has already shifted. The shift. Okay, well, the good news is that this isn't permanent. So once you see what's happening, you can change how your value is positioned without becoming aggressive, political, or difficult. The shift is moving from effort to leverage, being the person who absorbs work to being the person who owns outcomes, from fixing problems after they appear to shaping systems so they don't keep appearing, from measuring your value by how busy you are to measuring it by what changed because you were involved. This doesn't mean doing less. It means being more intentional about where your energy goes and how your contribution is perceived. So when your work is tied to outcomes instead of availability, your role becomes harder to question and certainly harder to replace. And that's the shift that restores control in an uncertain environment. And if this video hit close to home, it's because you're not alone. A lot of capable professionals are feeling this shift. Not because they failed, but because the rules changed quietly. The roles that once felt safe no longer protect people the way they used to. But once you understand why this is happening, it becomes fixable. You can reposition how your value shows up, and you can move from being relied on to being hard to replace. And if this resonated with you, please comment below. I read every one. And don't forget to hit the like button and share it with a friend. And of course, subscribe for more practical guidance on staying relevant and secure in a changing job market. Until next time, take care, be kind to yourself, and keep leaning into what makes you strong. And I'll see you in the next one.